DragonCon 2024 is in the books, and how was it? Well, I am going to tell you my thoughts, but before I start, please share your thoughts as well, because it's always better to have a collective take on something, especially something as big as DragonCon, especially since I'm just one person and I cannot possibly see it all. There's so many things that I missed, and I would love to have additional feedback from everyone else. But I will give my personal rating at the end, and if you found any of that useful, or you just want to hear more about DragonCon as the year goes on and we head towards DragonCon 2025, I would greatly appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. And as for the rest of the video, since I do talk a little slowly sometimes, I'd probably recommend you put it on 1.5 or even 2x speed. But anyways, let's get started. To start off with, let's talk about the crowds. DragonCon said the official attendance number for 2024 was 75,000 attendees, which is a 5,000 jump from 2023, which in itself was a 5,000 jump from 22. And even though the jump from 22 to 23 didn't seem that noticeable, I definitely felt that difference this year compared to 23. In fact, there were certain parts when I kind of felt like we were inching back towards those peak crowds we had back in 2019. Even as early as Wednesday, I could tell that it was going to be a more packed year, because it felt like Thursday, a lot of it, especially if you were confined to the Marriott. Thursday certainly felt like a Friday, and of course Saturday was a big cluster fudge that we always expect it to be. There were definitely times when I felt like things were at a standstill if you were trying to use the tunnels between the hotels. And then some of the decisions that the Hilton made to try to redirect traffic flow, I didn't really think they worked too well. And the Marriott seems to have taken even more space up to push their vendors. I remember there was this big section out in the main lobby close to where you would walk into the elevators. And that's in addition to some of the other ones that they had like under the loft bar. And even losing just a little bit of ground in the Marriott, I think makes a big negative impact when it comes to traffic flow. Related to crowds was lines. And I thought overall it was pretty rough. The lines that I experienced did seem worse than the recent few years. However, I will give kudos to the badge pickup. I went around 10 a.m. on Thursday. It wasn't too bad. I think it took me about 35 minutes total from the time that I arrived to the front of the hotel until I had my badge in hand. They did use a new area to house everyone once we were waiting inside. I'm not sure if that was better or worse. The room did seem a little bit smaller, but again, I can't complain too much if the total wait time is only 35 minutes. In stark contrast, the line to get into the vendor hall seemed to be terrible pretty much no matter any time that you went. In fact, I tried to go once on Friday, and as we looped around the building once, twice, 3 times all the way around, and we were basically back where we would have started towards the main entrance, I said nope, and I just kept on walking back and did something else that day. I have heard it wasn't as bad if you went during the parade or close to the end of most of the days. Of course, Monday isn't bad either, because that's when I actually went back and it only took me about 2 minutes to get in. But if you have any times that worked for you, definitely put that in the comments. Another big event as always is the Bunny Hutch, and I was kind of optimistic because they had moved it to the Marriott Atrium Ballroom, which is the largest one that DragonCon has. But walking by it a few times, I saw that line was pretty much there the whole night, and it looks like there was always a wait to get in, so I'm not sure that it really got too much better. In addition to that, I know the cast members of the Baldur's Gate 3 game were massive this year, and of course any panels related to those cast members was pretty bad. In fact, one was so bad I think they actually started allowing people to line up 2 hours ahead of time, which is unheard of, and then cut it off 90 minutes before the panel started. So if you were someone who went an hour before, which is typically the rule of thumb for any panel, I really feel bad because they were already turning people away, saying that the line was already at capacity and that they weren't going to let anyone else in. As for the food court, it didn't seem always bad, but some of the more popular spots like Yummy Yummy or Aviva, they always look like they have pretty bad lines. So I tried to be picky about which ones I ate at. I really didn't have to wait more than 10, maybe 15 minutes at most to get my food. The Hilton also tried a new line management system for their elevators. They had staff members on the main floor, and you pretty much had to go through them to get into the elevator. I didn't use it myself, but I did hear overall that it went pretty well. It didn't do so hot when it was super peak crowd times, but the rest of the time I heard pretty positive feedback. And last but not least, I heard checking in and especially checking out was terrible at the host hotels. I actually saw this myself when I first came in on Wednesday and then even looked at Thursday. At the Marriott, it just looked terrible the whole time. And then of course all the horror stories you hear about checking out on Monday, where people would have to wait 2 hours or something just to wait on a free cart or a bellhop to come get stuff from their room. But you know, that's kind of the pros and cons by getting a host room. You're really close to the action, but trying to leave on Monday can be a big hassle. As for the guests, I think the con did a good job this year about bringing in people that had not been there before, as well as bringing back some other people that were pretty popular. And I know this always varies depending on, just who you are and what your fandoms are. Personally, for me, I thought the cast of Baldur's Gate 3 was great. Their panels were really enjoyable. I had a really fun photo op with them. And I also got a photo op with Vincent D'Onofrio and Kobe Smulders. But outside of them, the only time I went into the Walk of Fame was just kind of to do a lap and see what the prices were. And I'm gonna sound kind of dated here, but I definitely did not like it. Prices have gotten so high nowadays. Some of the autographs were going for $60. I think it was $80 for Ming-Na Wen because, her Star Wars fame. And even though I'm a fan, there was no way I was gonna fork over that much money for barely a minute interaction. The events, most of them were actually pretty good. I'm just gonna get the one bad one out of the way. And this was a panel on how to monetize social media from the digital media track. I thought it was terrible. So I know this channel only has 240 subscribers. I'm actually doing a lot better over on TikTok for a completely unrelated topic. So I actually have learned a thing or two about how to grow on social media, as well as different options that you can use to monetize it for yourself. And the speakers that they had at this panel were just awful. For one, it was all pretty much everyone was kind of in the same boat. And two, their advice was just so generic at best, and at worst, it was about 5 years outdated. They really didn't have any clues on things like search engine optimization, keywords, growth strategies, or really any type of recent thing that's been developing. And of course, for any time stuff like this happens, the best two places to go to give your feedback if you had a negative experience is either the DragonCon app, go to the specific event, go rate it and put in comments, or you can use the official DragonCon survey, which they probably sent it out to you if you bought a badge, but if they haven't, I did put a link below to it so that you can give them your thoughts and feedback as well. Okay, but that was the bad. The other ones that I attended, I'm always recommending that people go to voice actor panels. I went to two different ones. One was Twisted Tunes, the other one was Improvised D&D, and both were hilarious. They were such a great time. There was a bit of a wait to get in, whereas I think I probably waited about 45 minutes to get into both, but there was still plenty of room to get in. And once you were in, it was such an enjoyable time. I really recommend it again and again in future years if you're gonna go. There were some other small panels I went to that were more enjoyable, including one with author Hugh Howley. He wrote the book Wool, which eventually they made a TV show called Silo on Apple TV, and it's one of the best sci-fis I've seen in a long while. I even went to a dance party for a little bit. I think about one dance is all I have left in me these days because the joints in the back, they start hurting after a while. But hopefully you guys got to attend some and they were pretty enjoyable too. Okay, vendor hall. As I alluded to earlier, the first time I tried to go on Friday, it just didn't work out, so I just pieced out of there. And instead, that same day, I went to the art show and bazaar, which is actually in the Hyatt. And that is always one of my favorite times because I just think the stuff in there is more unique. And I definitely bought a lot of swag from there. However, I did go back to the America's Mart on Monday and I pretty much made a beeline to the 4th floor, which is for the Artist Alley. I've pretty much seen my fair share of the stuff that's on the first 3 floors. It doesn't really change too much from year to year, but I did love seeing new art pieces, or at least new to me. A lot of the times I'll ask the artists, I'm like, hey, have you been to this con before? And they're like, yeah, I've been coming. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I just haven't seen or recognized your art before. But it's always a nice thing to find new stuff that you like. Okay, the cosplay. Oh my God, there's so much that I always miss. If you want to check out a lot of that, go look at Justin's video, which is 40 minutes long. So that definitely covers a lot of cosplay that you may have missed too. I kind of feel like next time I just need to keep a lookout for some of the photo shoots they have on the Hilton steps, because that's just an easy way to see all the cosplays in one area. I also feel like the people who cosplay kind of change it up. Like the nighttime stuff is going to be more of a party thing, or just kind of easier to walk around, whereas the really good stuff probably comes out during the day because it just photographs better in the light. And as I often say, some of my favorite things is the types of costumes and people who make it interactive for other attendees, essentially adding to the con experience for everyone. I tried to do this myself by being FedEx John on one of the days, and I just kind of plopped myself in the original hallway that he was at and had a really good time, just people either laughing, giving a thumbs up, coming to sign the box, which unfortunately I don't think I can show because the first person who signed it, of course, drew a wiener on there. But speaking of people who stopped to talk to me, I would say that was one of my biggest personal highlights. Any and everyone who actually recognized me from this YouTube channel. I'm always amazed because, again, I think this is pretty small. So the fact that anyone recognizes my face, let alone takes time out of their day to actually speak to me, just really means a lot, and I appreciate it from everyone who did that. In fact, talking to so many of y'all is what's going to motivate motivate me to actually make more consistent content this year. And who knows, maybe for DragonCon 2025, I'll actually bring some ribbons to hand out to anyone who actually comes says hi to me. Okay, so that's pretty much the bulk of it, but of course, as always, there are just some random tidbits and memories that I have that I want to share, so this is kind of like a lightning round on DragonCon 2024. Always got to give a shout out to the people of the Hilton for their themed decorations. They went with Beetlejuice this year, and I thought it was a really great success. Surprisingly, in contrast to 2023, I didn't shop at the CVS even once, even though I came in fully prepared to do that. I really enjoyed using the secret food court, especially after buying food from the main food court, since the secret one still doesn't really have many food options at all. But they do have plenty of seating, and this year they pretty much kept it open most of the weekend, so definitely a pro tip: if you have food or you just want somewhere quiet to sit down, go to the secret food court. Trader Vic's is always a good time, whether you're having actual dinner or just even stopping by there, because it actually wasn't that packed on Saturday night as I was expecting. Maybe people were just everywhere else, or just it was hard to get down to the basement level, but I also had a really good time hanging out there that night as well. Another first for me was seeing the actual New Year's countdown on Wednesday. I did stay up till 12 on Wednesday, even though it was the first day. And as I tend to do on most years, I ran into WWE superstar Xavier Woods, who I've been seeing at the con sporadically since 2008. So there you go. All in all, I thought it was a great con for me. I would rate it a 9 out of 10 just because a 10 out of 10 seems so lofty that, I don't know, maybe except for like the first con and a handful of ones early in my years, it just seems so hard to get that perfect 10 kind of experience, especially with the crowds growing and everything. But I think a 9 out of 10 is still an exceptional event. Again, please feel free to share your thoughts, your takes, your reviews, because the more info we have, the more informed someone can be if they are curious about going the next year for themselves. Anyways, I do appreciate you watching. Again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time.